10 o'clock on a Tuesday during hurricane season. That means it's time to track the tropics from cloudy, gloomy, and kind of waterlogged Central Florida. I'm WESH 2 meteorologist Eric Burris.
And from Savannah, Georgia, I'm WJCL 22 Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Nelson. Eric, I like the backdrop, so give everyone what's going on here.
Yeah. So we just got hit with Hurricane Milton, and my internet is still out at the house. So the only place that I can get a decent signal is out here, and I can't even promise that tracking the tropics is going to be the smoothest thing you've ever seen. So understand, I'm waiting. The only reason I didn't go to like a Starbucks or to the office to do this is because I'm waiting for the internet guy to come out because apparently the issue is on my end. So just bear with us if there's any technical glitches. We're going to do the best that we can today.
Yeah, I know after Helene hit the Savannah area, about 2 days without power, which in the grand scheme of things, compared to others, that was pretty quick to return. But the internet,
Yeah.
that took a couple more days. So, yeah, these things definitely happen, and it's understandable. So we'll do our best to get around that. But let's talk about what's going on.
Yeah. So right now, basically looking out at the Atlantic and really happy to report, Jeremy, that there are no named storms out there. There are a couple of areas of interest to watch. The first area of interest is Invest 94. And to give you an idea of where this is, on the right side, that's the Cabo Verde Islands, which are just off the coast of Africa. So we are way out in the middle of nowhere. Little bit of convection today around Invest 94. There was no convection yesterday. This is an area of interest. It has a low 30% likelihood of developing over the next 2 days' time, but a medium 60% likelihood over the next 7 days' time. That blob is where the Hurricane Center believes that this would form. And it's important to note because at first glance, without context, this certainly does look like a scary trajectory, but thankfully, atmospherically, Jeremy, it does not look like this should be a threat to the United States.
Yeah, and each model run that comes in, it doesn't seem to be very impressive, and then it's kind of even hard to form where the low may eventually form, and then some kind of peel a piece of energy off to the north, strengthen it. Others sort of meander it in that trajectory you see there. So as of right now, I would say is a very very low concern, but certainly something we'll monitor. Again, as you mentioned, probably just scarier looking at the kind of that orange shaded area versus what the reality may be of this.
Right. So the Hurricane Center issues this product to let you know where they think it's going to form. But the computer models that are running, I think, give the perspective, which is that, yes, over the next 7 days' time, it does kind of follow that like west northwest trajectory. But about the time that it gets around Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, there'll be a cold front in the vicinity, which should either dive this south and weaken it or pick it up and recurve it and keep it out to sea. But Jeremy, as you mentioned, the models aren't really going gung-ho with this either way, so there's not a significant concern, at least as of right now. But it's definitely something to watch.
Yeah, and also, at least for my area, something I want to bring up here, and I'm going to look over to the side because I know as of yesterday, our water temperature along the southeast coastline up by my area was down to 73 degrees. And this morning it was very cool. We have temps that are headed into the 40s the next couple nights. So our water temperatures are going to start dropping fast. Most of the water temps for me are now 72 to 73 degrees, and that would not be conducive to tropical development. So we'll kind of wait and see how that plays out in the days ahead. So water temperatures for us right now, not looking too concerning as they start to cool down. So if it would take a turn to the north, it may start to weaken.
Yeah. So little by little, we're transitioning into this more autumn type weather pattern. So that is certainly good news. There is a second area of interest. This is the area that I feel like broke the internet. So Milton wasn't even off the coast of Florida. I was still in continuous coverage. People were still flooding in Florida, and the social media hype machine was looking at several runs of computer models that had this storm system kind of blowing up and moving our direction this week. And then somebody on the internet had the great idea of let's find a cone from an old storm, share it, and really scare people. I had to post about that, Jeremy. I know you saw it, and we kind of chatted a little bit about it. Which is crazy that people are just trying to hype and come up with fake stuff. But anyway, so they did that. Okay. So there's that. Nothing developed, but there is an area that we're kind of watching. So let me take you down here to the Caribbean Sea, and you can see there's some moisture down that area. It has a low end chance of forming. Over the next 7 days' time, we're looking at a 30% chance. But that said, if it forms, most of the models kind of loop it around and keep it around Belize, Central America, and Mexico, Jeremy.
Yeah, so that one, and if we're going to see something develop this time of year, it needs to be where the water is warm. So as I was mentioning, southeast coast, not a favorite area, especially the later we get into this month. But the water down in the Caribbean and parts of the Gulf still very warm. So those are kind of your areas that you really monitor. Middle, end of October, and then into November, water starts to cool in most spots.
Yeah, yeah. So we're watching this. We're watching all the different areas to kind of get an idea of what's going on. But the good news is both of these areas do not look overwhelmingly concerning for the United States. Now, we're still very much in hurricane season, right? It's October the 15th. We've got like a little mini peak mid-October, but you do notice that those numbers for named systems come down looking at the November, December timeframe. And of course, hurricane season runs through the end of November, though we have had named storms each and every month of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, a couple of years ago, we had a busy November, so we'll see what's in store come this November. But usually, it's about every other year that we see a name storm during the month of November. So last year we did not have one. Maybe this year we will. We're at 13 named storms so far this season, but I think it's all about kind of what has happened with those storms because we've had a lot of landfalls along the U.S. coastline.
Yeah, yeah. So let's take a look. As a matter of fact, Jeremy, so this is the landfall map and the hotspot zones that we came out with on March the 1st for our hurricane forecast. You're the statistician of the two of us, so why don't you get into some of the numbers that you kind of looked up?
Yeah, so the lines that you're looking at there, the one that is a little bit closer to Myrtle Beach, that was a potential tropical cyclone that was not named, so we won't count that in ours, but we just wanted to kind of show anything that's bumped into the land. So I believe we're 5 of 6 landfalls are in the red areas, and the one that is not is Beryl. So we had Beryl. What else do we? Debbie made 2 landfalls,
Yep.
Big Bend, and then it bent back out over Savannah, and then curved back up into South Carolina. Of course, we had Milton
You had
most
Helene,
recently, and then was it
Helene and Francine.
Ernesto?
Helene and Francine.
Yeah, Helene and Francine. So,
Right. Yeah.
and that went into Louisiana, and then of course Milton, obviously into Florida here last week.
Yeah. So it's been fairly busy. And when we look at the numbers, certainly the ACE numbers will tell the story. I think it's really interesting though, because we went years without seeing like hurricanes make landfall on the United States, Jeremy. And I think it's kind of interesting that this year alone we've had so many landfalling named storms. So it just kind of shows you, you know, there's these cycles of sorts, and that's kind of part of what we get into. But just within the last 3 months, my area, your area, we've had some landfalls around from Helene and Debbie over to Milton. So that there's what goes around comes around, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, and also within that, Helene and Debbie, back on March the 1st, we showed the time frame of potential systems, parts of the pattern, and those two are tied together, and you can look at their landfall locations, and they were very close to each other. So those were, at least for my area of the three, had high impacts here recently.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the numbers have added up. I think we did a pretty decent job with our hurricane season forecast, and
Helene was for you down there in Orlando.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, you cut out there for a minute, so I just kind of we're battling technical issues. It is what it is. But yes, you can very clearly see we've had several landfalls, most of which hit our hot spots and in the time frames that we had called for. And to that point, too, let's just add we are now into a new part of our cycling weather pattern, Jeremy.
Yeah, so each fall, at least the method we use, especially once we get past about October the 10th, or that's just kind of a date range that we use, we look for the new pattern that starts to set up, and we really start to focus mid to late October through November. And then all the way through winter, are we going to see lows travel across parts of the Gulf of Mexico, down maybe near Florida, off the southeast coastline? And then we start to gather that data in future cycles. Where do those lows go? And then we put that all together and we make our forecast that comes out on March the 1st. That's the very simplified version of it. It's more complex than that, but
Yeah.
so far in the initial stages here, we haven't really had any lows pass by that would pique our interest. Obviously, Milton we think is more old than new pattern, though. At least that's kind of my opinion of it. But
Right,
it is
right.
something will watch closely.
Yeah, and a lot of people like Courtney literally just asked that, and I think that that's a question that everybody's having. Like Milton fit the old pattern. We didn't include the date because it was at the very, 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 very end of the old pattern. It was in that overlap period. So the question is it just kind of a fading signal from the old pattern, or does it also show up in this new pattern? So we'll know that in the next few months, and certainly Jeremy, you and I will
Yeah.
will chat about that and be very very open if we see that. I had messaged back and forth with Gary a little bit, and his thoughts were kind of things that fit into that time frame can kind of be part of both patterns. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Right. Yeah. And the good thing is, I mean, we'll